Really? Oh, you were sick? If I ever stop, I might just wither up like with a vampire in sunlight or something. Oh, well, I didn't go that far. No, I did read the part of Martin's things or something. No, I didn't go crazy.
But no, actually, it went well, but just not a lot. I wonder if everyone could take their seats. We're going to start in about 30 seconds. Thank you. And I'm late. Oh, 7:02. Look at that. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Mathey.
Present.
Alderman Sage.
Here.
Alderman Malumwe.
Here.
Alderman Burgess.
Here.
Alderman Painter.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman Black.
Here.
Alderman Harmon.
Here.
Alderman Bray.
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. Thank you very much. Now we're going to start with recognitions and appointments. We're going to start with the recognition of National Healthcare Decisions Day. And is there someone in the audience who is here to receive the proclamation? Well, I'll go ahead and read it anyway. Okay? A lot of whereases in this, so bear with me. National Healthcare Decisions Day, April 16th, 2018. Whereas Healthcare Decisions Day is designated to raise public awareness of the need to plan ahead for healthcare decisions related to the end-of-life care and medical decision-making whenever patients are unable to speak for themselves, and to encourage the specific use of advanced directives to communicate these important healthcare decisions. And whereas the Illinois Living Will Act and Illinois Power of Attorney Acts provide the specifics of our advanced directives and offers a model form, for patient use. And whereas it is estimated that only about 20% of the people in Illinois and in Bloomington have executed an advance directive. Moreover, it is estimated that less than 50% of severely or terminally ill patients have an advance directive. And where it is likely that a significant reason for these low percentages is that there is both a lack of knowledge and considerable confusion in the public about advance directives. And whereas one of the principal goals of Healthcare Decisions Day is to encourage hospitals, nursing homes, assisted living facilities, continuing care, retirement communities, and hospices to participate in an effort to provide clear and consistent information to the public about advance directives, as well as to encourage medical professionals and lawyers to volunteer their time and efforts to improve public knowledge and increase the number of Bloomington citizens with advance directives. And whereas the Benjamin and Mary Evelyn Moore Foundation and other organizations throughout Illinois have endorsed this event and are committed to educating the public about the importance of discussing healthcare choices and executing advance directives. And whereas, as a result of April 16th, 2018 being recognized as Healthcare Decisions Day in Illinois, Bloomington, Illinois, more citizens will have conversations about their healthcare decisions, more citizens will execute advance directives to make their wishes known, and fewer families and healthcare providers will have to struggle with making difficult healthcare decisions in the absence of guidance from the patient. Now, therefore, I, Terry Renner, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, recognize April 16th, 2018 as the National Healthcare Decisions Day in Bloomington, Illinois, and call this observance to the attention to all of our citizens. In witness thereof, I have hereunto my hand and cause the seal of the City of Bloomington to be affixed to this on the 12th day of March, 2018. Anyway, so this will be the first, and I will pass this over to you at the end of the meeting. The second and third directives are a recognition of Jan Elam and Todd Campbell of Bloomington, Illinois for their work on the completion and restoration of the gazebo and pavilion at the Briarwood and Dawes intersection. Are both of these people here or representatives from them to accept these? Would you please come forward? There are two, but it's the same thing, so I'll read it once. Okay. Whoops. Excuse me, get my glasses ready here. In recognition of Jan Elam, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Of two, I'm sorry. Oh, boy, that was a 50-50 chance, and I blew it. And then Todd Campbell, all right. April 9th, 2018. And I see one of your neighbors in the audience, and so I figure I know what this is about. Whereas we're here to celebrate Jan Elam and Todd Campbell of Bloomington, for their work and completion and restoration of the gazebo and pavilion at the Briarwood and Dawes intersection, and whereas both have worked through the most inclement weather of 2017 and 2018, enduring sub-zero temperatures to make sure the project was completed, and whereas providing excellent craftsmanship and enhancing and updating the gazebo into an inviting haven that will be treasured and used for generations to come, and whereas both were crucial for providing a structure with excellent form and useful function, and their crucial work led to the renovation of a treasured residential landmark that had fallen into disrepair, adding charm and character to the Briarwood Dawes Norblum neighborhood. And whereas both has served as outstanding citizen of Bloomington goodwill ambassadors to the neighborhood and helping promote neighborhood unity with the improvement, safety, and means to preserve the character and gazebo shelter, they also extended the courtesy to residents of answering questions and concerns that arose from the project, as well as for the responsible stewardship of city property, equipment, and regard for the residents. And whereas for researching and sharing the historic background of the gazebo with the residents and chronicling the structural improvements during various stages of the renovation, with photos to aid in identification of the project as well as for future reference and research. And whereas for their constancy in maintaining a kind, cheerful, positive, approachable, and friendly outlook, and therefore I, Terry Renner, Mayor of Bloomington, wish to extend our thanks and recognize Jan Elam and Todd Campbell for their outstanding work on this project. Thank you so much for all of what you've done. Let me put this in here properly.
I should mention that we do work for the Bloomington
Parks Department.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you. Thanks.
Terry, if I could say just a few words.
Please.
So both of these employees are part of our department, Parks Maintenance. This was all neighborhood, neighbor-driven by the Hollisters are here. Brought these guys food and beverages quite a while during the time, but love to point out the fact of, these guys, they don't do it because of recognition like this. In fact, they probably would rather not be here than be here, but it just shows how much pride and work ethic our guys have across our whole department, and thank for their work, and thank for the whole department that we work really well together and try to do what we best can for the whole community. So
thank you. Thank you, Jay, and thank you both. Congratulations again. And we have one appointment recognition. Tyson Moore, is Tyson in the audience? Appointment to the planning. Oh, actually, he did let me know he was not going to be able to attend this evening. And apologize. At this point, we move to public comment, and just to want to remind everyone that I do have a mayor's open house before regular city council before regular city council meetings. The regular meetings are on Monday. Like last Friday, we had a meeting, and we sit around the table in the back, and you can come in and ask questions of any form that you want. Sometimes we can get answers on the spot. Not always, but sometimes, and sometimes get problems resolved on the spot. Here we do not respond, so this is literally public comment without response. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and start, and we have up to 30 minutes. We won't have that this evening because we have fewer than 10 people who have signed up. You have up to 3 minutes apiece to talk about anything that's on your mind. It doesn't have to be on the agenda. All right, we're going to start out with Scott Steinerling, and then Donna Bolin, and then Aaron. I'm reading them in groups of 3. Yeah, I got you.
Scott Steinling, Ward 5. Terry, I think that you knew that you were not going to extend the mayor's open house Friday, April 6th, due to the fact that the presentation took about approximately 75% of the time allotted. I thought you were going to extend it, but I guess not. This very easily could have taken place at a council meeting after public comment. And what about the fact that you abused the P card in this city? The council should have removed, in my opinion, should have removed you from office right then. This is not Illinois Westland, Terry. I really do feel that the reason that you moved the mayoral open house or the citizens input meeting into your office was so that you would not take the chance of being embarrassed. I would not think that you would appreciate it if your students would not give you their undivided attention in class. If you tried to have that with the council meetings, you would be in violation of the Open Meetings Act. Do you remember the P card? How about when you referred to Diane Benjamin as a worthless piece of garbage? I feel that you overstepped your mayoral authority again Friday, May 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move right along to Donna Bolin, and then Aaron, and then Carl Woodward.
I'm Donna Bolin. I live in Ward 2. I have a family member who has, with great personal risk, smuggled food to those in hiding in the Nazi-occupied Holland during World War II. She entered the United States legally through Ellis Island. We all have personal stories about immigration. They are emotional because they're personal. When making laws, one has to step back and set the emotion aside and use reason. There is a need to review the history of immigration reform and the current law. There's a need to review the role and responsibility of the 3 branches of government. Under the U.S. Constitution, the U.S. Congress has complete authority over immigration. The Illinois Trust Act was debated by all state congressional representatives, passed and approved, signed into law. That is how representative government works. The police chief warned the council about the safety of the community. The council's responsibility is to provide support for are law enforcement so they can keep the community safe, and they are responsible to uphold the Constitution of the United States. I've heard no reasonable argument for passing the welcoming ordinance. What I have heard are anecdotal comments, some withdrawn by the immigration lawyer. I've seen signs with phrases tugging at heartstrings, similar to the plaque on the Statue of Liberty. I've heard arguments using confirmation bias intended to undermine the police chief's credibility. I've seen and experienced bullying by the activists, and I have heard promotion of anarchy. Social justice for the illegal immigrants is accomplished up close and personal, one-on-one, face-to-face. There is no shortcut and there is no substitute. If the activists truly are concerned about the safety of members of the local illegal immigrant community, they need to comfort them, reach out to them, educate them, reassure them, and direct them to the appropriate social services. By law, the victims are protected, and there are legal processes in place. It is easy to make posters, attend city council meetings, and use Facebook to berate those who disagree. Instead, put the pressure on the U.S. Congress to reform immigration law, trust in the state's Trust Act, do not pass the welcoming ordinance. Instead, honor the U.S. form of government. Immigrants need to learn how our government works if they want to become citizens. I understand this has to do with everyone's dislike of Trump. Point taken. Vote him out next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Aaron, then Carl Woodward, and Tim Koch or Koch. I'm not sure which pronunciation is.
Hola. Absolutely pass that ordinance, I swear to God. Y'all need to do it. Seriously. Pass it. Pass the ordinance. It's bad what the police is doing to these people. Because, they're doing bad things to the people that are legal immigrants in this country. We were in here talking about that not too long ago, but that's not what I came here tonight to talk about. I came to publicly ridicule my former alderman, Kevin Lauer, for making fun of me about having a GED. And Kevin Lauer said that I'm dumber than a sack of hammers, a bunch of crap like that, because I got a GED, and I got it from the Lincoln's Challenge program, which I successfully completed. But, so I offer you this alternative reality when you guys aren't getting along, that you could get stuck with the guy that's making fun of people for having a GED. So just, chill it out. It's cool. Love you guys.
Okay, next is Carl Woodward, and then Tim Cook or Koch.
Good evening. I wanted to talk about finances just briefly. My confidence level, and I sent most of you an email, is very minimal. That as a group, I don't think you have a clue what you're doing. And I'm going to say why. Other than Jamie, I'm not sure any of you are business people. You're all professionals of sorts somewhere. And I'm just talking about a couple comments made in the Panagraph. They wrote, flat revenue in face of increasing costs resulted in a $2.9 million deficit. Assuming that's correct, we talked about expenses. You folks are real good at raising taxes. Expenses, you have a shortcoming. As I wrote in my email, and I'll repeat myself a little bit here, I don't think anyone in this room has the discipline, including myself and the audience, to cut expenses. It's too unpleasant. I advise businesses every day, work day of the year, about how to help them be more successful. You folks, as I wrote in the email to you, if you're ever going to cut expenses at all, other than reduce the number of pencils somebody gets, you're going to need a little outside influence, not me, probably no one that lives in Central Illinois, to come in and say, if we had to cut expenses, here's areas of opportunity. I don't think this has ever been done in 10 years in Bloomington. So you're wasting your time to make a material adjustment without getting somebody outside that's independent of everybody in the room. Panagraph reported, someone said, the reductions, that's the reductions you folks have done, are more about a difference in accounting than any changes in revenue and spending. I agree. What's that saying backwards? You're just scraping at the edges. You had the budget, you increased the fees $2.9 million. You don't really cut anything, you raise more fees. Look back a little bit at the history of the council. Cultural district, the study that you folks did was off by millions. Coliseum, the study you folks did was off by millions. I don't know the merits of a soccer complex, but another study, maybe 10 grand doesn't matter. You're $150 million behind on pension and health care. Did all of you know that? What are you doing about it? Nothing really other than meeting a legal mandated amount. I tried to find out from the accounting department how much you paid to pay this down and months ago, and no response. So if a citizen wants to find something, it's impossible. The tax base isn't going up, as you folks know. Common sense says we maybe need to reduce some taxes. So I'm suggesting you make a real effort, if you care, to get some outside consultant, heaven forbid, and let him or her tell you where there are opportunities or where I would cut the first $5 million. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tim? And which way did I mispronounce your name?
It's Cook.
It's Cook, okay.
So, yeah. Hello, my name is Tim Cook, and I am the president of Illinois Fire Junior Soccer Club. Between our PCSL Recreational League and the Illinois Fire Juniors Travel, I represent over 2,000 soccer athletes here in Bloomington Normal. I'm here today to strongly support funding the economic study of a multi-sports complex. As I prepared for this meeting, I noticed that your packet was today had notes from a retreat earlier this year where you, as a council, agreed that the number one focus need to be economic development. I am here today to tell you that a new sports complex would provide an economic boost to our community, which if done right would be substantial. But just don't take my word for it. Look at the numbers yourself. I have seen many articles, academic studies, documentaries, and even an HBO Real Sports investigation that keeps pointing to the fact that sports tourism is exploding nationwide. Done right, it is a major economic development opportunity. Bloomington, being centrally located and connected via interstate to the rest of the state and surrounding states, is uniquely positioned to take advantage of this opportunity. Most people understand the impact that comes from having various IHSA state finals here, but they don't realize that travel soccer, drawing from multiple states, is bigger. Just don't take my word for it. Look at the numbers yourself. In fact, look up Grand Park, a facility located in Westfield over in central Indiana. This facility is in a city about the size of Kankakee, brought in over $165 million last year in economic impact. It also happens to host one of our sister teams, the Indiana Fire Juniors. But don't take my word for it. Look up those numbers yourself. Closer to home, outside of a much smaller facility in Rockford, there is nothing like this in downstate Illinois. Soccer is growing, and we already have the only downstate Major League Soccer affiliated club right here in Bloomington. And there are other clubs in Bloomington, Morton, and other places in central Illinois that would likely use the facility. But don't take my word for it. Look at the actual numbers. In fact, last May, we held our annual tournament here in Bloomington that 68 teams attended. 168 teams, with an average of 15 kids on each team, not to mention moms, dads, siblings, etc. That is a lot of visitors to town. And we have actual numbers that show hotel stays, a lot of eating out, etc. But don't take my word for it. Look at the actual numbers. In fact, last year, during a rain-soaked cold weekend, your own traffic division put up camera and traffic counter at the entrance and saw thousands of cars. Thousands. These were the numbers on a bad weather weekend. They would swell when we have good weather. And once our lot filled up, cameras captured right at 2,000 people. 2,000 people park across the street and walk across the street in the rain to watch their son or daughter play soccer.
I'm sorry, your time's up.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, Tim. Thank you. Good evening. At this point, we move to consent agenda. Are there any items that any member of the City Council would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Alderwoman Bray?
Yes, please, Mayor. I'd like to remove A.
7A. Okay. Any other items? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of item 7A?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Howman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. Any further discussion? Okay, if you'll go ahead and vote, this is to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of item 7A. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. And we'll move right on to item 7A, and I'll turn the floor over to Alderwoman Bray.
Thank you, Mayor. I've pulled this item from the consent agenda because there was an updated copy of the minutes of the February 12, 2018 meeting circulated this afternoon, and it would be my motion that that updated copy be adopted by the City Council as the rendering of the minutes for the February 12, 2018 meeting.
Okay, so could you repeat your motion then? I'm sorry.
My motion is that the updated copy that was routed this afternoon,
Okay.
which was revised and
that is the
for
one
February
that's
12 would be the copy of the
Okay.
minutes.
Is there a second to that motion? Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. Further discussion? Okay, if we could go ahead and vote on the motion and the second. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay, we move right along. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead.
Well, no, just
Yeah.
so 7A contained two sets of minutes.
Two sets. I'm sorry. That's right.
So, and then my motion would be that we adopt the minutes as drafted for the March 26, 2018 meeting.
For the March 26, 2018 meeting as drafted.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there a second? A second by Alderwoman Schmidt. Any discussion? Okay, if you'll go ahead and vote on that set of minutes. Thank you for the... Oh, there we go. That's right. No nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Motion carries unanimously. And now we move, okay, to a public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and call the public hearing to order, and this is on the proposed Downtown East Washington redevelopment project as scheduled by Ordinance 2018-08, which is approved on February 12, 2018. And we're going to start with a brief presentation, and then we will open this up to any sort of public hearing or comments on this item. So this is one of the types of public comments that have to be germane to the item that we are considering. It's not like general public comment. I'm just clarifying that. And I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to provide a brief introduction of our TIF consultant, Mike Weber from PGA&V. He'll provide a simple overview of the downtown East Washington Street TIF, and then after his presentation, we'll ask them to open the public hearing for public comment. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Weber?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. When a city wishes to establish a tax increment financing district, there's several fundamental findings that you'll be required to make as required by the law. And basically there's three. First off, you'll have to make a finding that the area qualifies. Secondly, you'll have to make a finding that the area on the whole hasn't been subject to growth and investment on the part of private enterprise. And then thirdly, you would have to make a finding that but for TIF, we're not going to see redevelopment projects or private investment take place within that proposed area. We've had a plan document on file, I believe, since early February. It explains the statutory basis for TIF. It contains an eligibility analysis of the area proposed for TIF. It presents the redevelopment plan, and it also has a section that presents various other findings, including evidence that the area as a whole hasn't been subject to growth and investment on the part of private enterprise and would not be developed but for TIF. The boundaries are shown on the map exhibit that's displayed here on the screen. It contains 13 parcels of real property, totaling only 7.4 acres net of street right-of-ways. In terms of the eligibility component of this plan, in order to qualify an area, it needs to meet the definition of either conservation area or the definition of blighted area or the combination of the two. And in this case, this eligibility analysis that's contained in the plan makes a finding that the area qualifies as a blighted area. And basically what that means is there's at least 5 of the blighting area criteria, 5 out of 13 criteria present within the area. And those items include deteriorated buildings and site improvements, obsolete buildings, high vacancy rate. 76% of the building space in this area is currently vacant. All of the buildings do not meet the city's minimum code standards. All of the improved parcels have excessive land coverage. We have some inadequate utilities with regards to some combined sewers in the area, as well as small water mains. And then furthermore, we have declining property values within the area. So in total, we have 7 blighting factors out of the 13, for which we need 5 to qualify it as a blighted area. In terms of the redevelopment plan components, what's being proposed here is a mix of residential, commercial, and possibly public facilities. In terms of projects that are in line for development, you of course are aware of the proposed iceberg development of the reuse or retrofitting of the former high school building. That's a key initial project that we anticipate will occur if in fact the TIF is established. We also received a proposal from the Laborers Home Development Corporation to purchase up several city-owned properties as well as a church property to redevelop those properties into multifamily residential. Both these projects have major financial gap issues with them. PGAV analyzed their pro formas, and it's clear that they need assistance not only from TIF but from low-income housing tax credits to make these projects financially feasible. Overall objective of the plan is to induce private investment to bring the property values up in the area. And just by way of comparison, the existing taxable fair market value in the area is averaging $15 a square foot per building. That's fair market value, not equalized assessed value. By comparison, the fair market value of the old Illinois Bank or Illinois House building in downtown is $26.50 a square foot, and the PNC Bank building is $126 a square foot. So clearly there's room in this area and other parts of downtown to bring the values up. In terms of the findings of need for TIF and other findings, we're able to find that the TIF plan is compliant with the 2015. I think those findings are outlined in the staff report with regards to this. The area hasn't been subject to growth and investment on the part of private enterprise, and this is evidenced by the conditions of the properties, the vacancies, and the declining values. And in terms of the but-for finding, again, the items I just mentioned, the conditions of properties and so forth, contribute to that finding, but the need for TIF has also been presented by Iceberg Development as well as the proposal from the Laborers Home Development Company or Corporation. The most recent equalized assessed value for the entire area is $640,000, and we anticipate after full redevelopment within that area that the EAV would increase by 3.4 to 3.6 million. In terms of financing, we anticipate the financing would be all done on what we call a pay-as-you-go basis. The city wouldn't be issuing any debt. It would be tied to the specific property's performance, and the developer would be taking all of the risk with regards to being paid back from TIF. And then the estimated date for retirement of any obligations, such as TIF redevelopment agreements, would be not later than December 31st of 2042. It'd be 23 years from the 2018. The council may consider ordinances that would set up this TIF program no sooner than 14 days from the close of this hearing and no later than 90 days from the close of this hearing. So, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you for public comment.
Just one real quick clarification. There's no reason necessarily why it has to last for 23 years necessarily,
No.
depending on the nature of the agreement. That's just the outer limit.
Right. And projects will happen in phases, so the clock's running, and future projects are obviously going to have less than the 23 years.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and again, is there a public comment on this public hearing? No public comment on this public hearing. Okay. I will declare this public hearing to be closed and thank everyone for their work on this. Next, we move to item 9A, consideration of the adoption of the FY 2019 proposed budget and appropriation ordinance. And I have a very brief presentation by Steve Rasmussen, and I've got there's only 5 minutes. My eyes are failing me already. I guess it's because I'm over 100 years old. Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Mayor and members of City Council. I'm pleased to bring before you tonight a balanced budget for the 2019 budget. 2019 budget. As you can see on the chart up there, the line is marching down. Today is April 9th. We'll put the line below that. Should there be a problem tonight, we can move back and vote again on April 23rd. But I believe that we have everything necessary for this that you have asked us to put into it. I'm going to give you 2 more slides, though, just to give you a quick rundown on this. This is the first slide, and what this is it shows that the total balanced budget is $210,117,855,000. Of that, the general fund is approximately $104,000, and all other funds is $105,000. I'm going to come back and talk to that $210 million in a couple minutes, because there have been various numbers that got out, and I think in the newspaper today we talked about a $2006 million budget, but I want to come back and talk to you about that. But of that balanced budget, you can see that we did that by a combination of 2 things. We were $3 million or so out of balance. The council targeted certain items, which we did the last couple of meetings, which amounted to $2.1 million, and we took departmental cuts of $775,000 out of that. This budget also includes nearly $26 million in capital improvements. Now, these are not the 5-year capital improvements. These are not the major projects that we're going to bring back to you in a couple of weeks, but these are the ones that are the ongoing projects that are done in all of the different departments in their capital improvement. And then what this does also, it leaves us a general fund balance of 15%, which is $15.8 million, which is generally pretty healthy for most cities, and we want to make sure we keep it above 15%. As you know, if it gets too high, citizens would wonder why we have so much money in reserve when we probably don't need that. But if we go below 15%, then we have questions about being able not only to make our payrolls, but also questions about credit rating. So 15% and a little bit higher is always healthy. Now I wanted to talk about that $210 million a little bit here. I've tried to make this a little bit simpler, and if you'll bear with me, I will go through that. the expenditures and revenues both equal the same amount. Our proposed budget that we brought back to you several months ago was $207 million. But what happens is this is a moving target because things don't sit still for 3 months in the budget business. The city's payroll and the city's expenditures continue to move forward. So the adopted budget that we're going to ask you to vote on tonight is the $210 million. So why the difference in that? Well, the difference is about $2.2 million, and it's mostly accounting numbers, but I'll give you a couple of examples of that. If you look down at the second one, the Arena Fund, we had $400,000 in there for the Americans with Disabilities Act elevator for the arena, and we were trying to get that done, but we could not get the project done in 2018, so we had to move that $400,000 at the last minute into the 2019 budget. Well, because of accounting, that then $400,000 counts as new revenue because we've moved it into the year of 2019. Even though it's the same amount of money, we just moved it from one year to the other. And I'll give you another one, the one right down below it, $370,000 for the Ireland Grove Tawanda Barnes project. You remember we went through that for a month or two. Well, what happens was we couldn't use state motor fuel tax because the project had gotten so large to accommodate the state requirements that we wanted to move it back down under $500,000, but we couldn't do that and still meet the state requirements. So what we did was we chose to use our own local motor fuel tax for that $370,000, and then we will use the state's motor fuel tax for other projects that will qualify for state motor fuel tax. So what it amounts to, it's a wash for us, except because we're using the $370,000 because of municipal accounting, that then again counts as revenue. So what happens is our total revenue has gone up, and there's a number of other numbers in there that are like that, but it makes it look like we are about $2.2 million greater in our adopted budget than we were in our proposed budget. It is but all of that is a wash because those things equal out the same amount as expenditures and revenues, which will come to $210 million instead of the $207 million. But when I asked you to approve the $210 million budget, that's why that's a little bit different than you would have seen previously. Items like the motor fuel tax and the arena, those things keep happening and they move on a month-to-month basis, and so sometimes we can't bring it all, we can't stop the budget at one moment to make it make the accounting come out the same all the time. So what happens is now the one that we will do as the adopted budget, though, that we're asking you to approve is the $210 million, and those books will be published in a couple of months. We don't have them ready for you, but these are the changes from the proposed budget to the adopted budget. That's the last slide that I have for you. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them for you. And our budget officer, Scott Rathman, is here with his books who will help me out on those tough questions you may have.
I just have one sort of macro level question because there's certainly been lots of debate and people have asked me other questions. Some people at public comment have made some questions or have concerns. But is it fair to say that of the over $1 million that we saved, if you will, out of solid waste, that a large portion, I don't know what the dollar amount is, but a majority of that was actually cuts because we're not going to pick up bulky waste more than twice a year?
Yes.
Do you have a rough figure about how much that was? I mean, that's actually, that was a pretty substantial cut. A real cut.
It was, and that saves us a great deal of money towards that $1 million. But what we will do is we will continue to pick up that solid waste, and I think that what happens is on a year-to-year basis, the public will still get the same amount picked up. But we do save it because we're not sending the trucks out every other week. That's where that savings come from. Jim, are you here? How much of that 1.1?
Just a rough.
Yeah, it was $250,000 in cuts, $850 in revenue. So that was about the split. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Other questions, comments from, or a motion?
I'll move that we move for the adoption of the fiscal year 2019 proposed budget and appropriation ordinance.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Alderman Miller-Wampley. Further discussion on the motion on hand. Okay, if everyone will go ahead and vote. This is on the 2019 budget. Okay. The motion carries 8-1. There is one nay to announce, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Sage.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you
very much.
Thank you and staff for all the work you've done.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and I thank the council for working through this in such a cooperative manner.
Okay. We move to item, 9B. I was going to say 8B. And we start out with a very brief presentation from Mr. Rasmussen. And this is in consideration of authorizing the payment for property liability, excess liability, and excess workers' compensation coverage for the City of Bloomington as requested by the Administrative Department. I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I wanted to point out we bring this forward to you every year. It's a little bit different each year, but we have two people here who are with us, Mike Nugent, who's our consultant, and Walt Larkin are here from our third-party administrator, and I'm going to ask Mike Nugent to come up and talk about this $811,000 budget that we have for insurance this year. Mike?
Good evening. We started this renewal back in October with a little bit different tone from the insurers than we've had the past couple years, primarily due to all the storm activity late last summer and early fall. So optimistically, I had hoped to secure flat rates for this renewal, and I wasn't all that optimistic that we'd be able to do that. But in the end of the day, the Gallagher team did a really good job of pressuring our insurers to look more at Bloomington's historic claims data and experience and focus on that and maybe away from all this other stuff that was going on. And I think they did that successfully. So the premium increase on dollars is 3.6%. But all of that is coming from increased exposures, property values, and annual payroll increases, and not from a rate increase. So the rates have actually stayed flat, and in some cases actually tweaked down just a little bit as compared to the current plan. So all in all, I'm really pleased with what we were able to accomplish from this renewal, especially given where I thought we were back late in 2017.
Okay. Questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we authorize the payment for property liability, excess liability, and excess workers' compensation insurance coverage for the City of Bloomington.
Okay. You could, actually in the future, we can probably just say 9B. Alderwoman Bray.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, second by Alderwoman Bray. Any further discussion? Okay, if everyone go ahead and vote. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. We move on to the next item, which is annual report by our police chief, Mr. Hefner. Welcome, Chief, and other chiefs. Boy, do we feel safe.
Coordinated here. Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens. It's always a pleasure to be up here. I'll be discussing the 2017 crime statistics. Before I do that, I just want to let you know whether crime goes up or down. We're giving 110% from everyone across the street to my assistant chiefs. We're always going to do what we think is best for the citizens. we may not always agree on the same things. We will respectfully agree to disagree, but we're always giving it our best. For those of you who hadn't seen it before, the Uniform Crime Report, that denotes reports that we forward on from our results of taking reports of incidents that we send on to the FBI, which they put out nationally, same as all other agencies. What we're looking at are the Part 1 crime report information. Those are your major crimes, basically, which most agencies are measured by. As you see, we went down 1%. May not seem like a lot, but if we're going down, I'm good with it. Obviously, we would like zero crime, but I think what is not evident there is that we're looking at 16 and 17. Since 2014, crime here has went down almost 30%. And as I said, that's the results of the hard work of the people across the street, to include our intelligence unit, the analysts, everyone working hard, and guidance from my assistant chiefs. Total group effort. Unfortunately, as I told you last year, it was the first time in, I believe, almost 20 years we had not had a homicide that ended in 17. We had 3. As I always state, any loss of life is always terrible, without a doubt. We are still within our average. We would like it to be 0 again, but there are just some things that are hard to control. One difference that we have in the 3 homicides that we experienced last year that would be different than what's occurring in other places. As you know, there's one of our neighbors to the west that just had 3 over the weekend, is that ours are not involving shooting incidents. While we still are having hybrid gang issues like everyone else, our intelligence-led policing is really helping us kind of stay on top of that. So we can mitigate some things before it happens, or we can apprehend some people afterwards. So while we don't want any homicides, these aren't linked together at all. Obviously, that very unfortunate incident with Rinkenberger and then Miss Hastings over on the west side. Robberies. Robberies went down. That's just good, aggressive police work by our patrol units, and also, once again, the intelligence unit giving us information so we can deploy our resources where they need to be. And if we are experiencing some robberies in a certain area, we adjust. We will use investigative efforts. We will do whatever we can to mitigate these things. We will also put things on social media. We had some people being robbed while they were selling things on Craigslist. We offer the parking lot for people to utilize sometimes, and we had people going to other areas. They were getting robbed. We put out information, and we're doing what we can. But obviously, anytime something goes down, that's great. Motor vehicle thefts. They went up again. They had went down and went back up. The same reason they were up a couple years ago is the same reason they went up again this year. We are still having issues with some of our juvenile offenders. They kind of are off the grid for a bit, and then they are back in the area or back out. And it's kind of tough. But I will tell you, though, we did have a spike, a real spike that actually pushed it up at the end of the year, November, December, and as you see on there, unattended cars running, be it homes, be it quick stops. It's kind of hard for us to prevent that, but we did have a spike in that cold weather, people leaving vehicles running. And I think people fail to realize, we try to get that information out, that just because you have push to start, you leave your vehicle running, they can still take it. Now, once they stop, they're not going anywhere, but a lot of our thefts are just people going and just taking short rides, just going somewhere. We don't have like a big syndicate around here taking cars, stripping them, and taking them up to Chicago or anything, but most of them were vehicles that were taken, driven for a while, and actually dropped off kind of in the same area. So we will keep putting the information out there as far as how to avoid that. DUI arrests went down. That doesn't mean we aren't working as hard on that, but just like in other jobs, you know, we have officers who change shifts. Most of your DUIs come from midnight shifts. We had some officers who were really, really aggressive in DUI enforcement that changed shifts. Now we have some new officers on that shift, and we didn't have the same numbers as last year, but the effort is the same. These are things that you learn. We already know we have one officer that is going to, by themselves, make numbers go back up again. People take it, you know, very personally, as they should, but that's the reason in the dip. We're still out there hitting it hard. But I would hope also that people are using more of our, you know, vehicles for hire. But we don't think it should drop that far. Street level violence, the shootings. Always good to see that number go down. That's another one we would like to have at 0. But that reduction in that, and once again, that's good intelligence-led policing, having our officers in areas where shootings are occurring. We have, in some instances, apprehended people who have been involved in shootings shortly after that happened. We have also caught people who, through social media, that we had seen with firearms, in possession of firearms, and caught them before they could do something. So once again, good total team effort that has helped that, and we're going to keep working at that to keep the shooting incidents down. The contributors, problem-oriented policing, you know, by the patrol division. With that intelligence information that we get, operations, they get the information out. The officers know where certain crimes are going on, or we have areas that are more in need than others. We're going to focus our efforts there. I think I told you all last year during a conversation that I don't need you to tell me where to put people. We figure that out. I deploy the resources. We do what we need to do. And that's because of the data-driven responses. We do that. The repeat calls for service. The social media, the crowdsource. We caught someone who had been down here with credit card fraud and upwards of $10,000 within 20 minutes after it being posted. They were recognized by someone in the Chicago area and got us the information. So the social media helps a lot. The coordination with the adult and juvenile defenders through the court system, through other areas. Sometimes when people get out, we don't want that recidivism rate. We're trying to stop them from getting in trouble again, be they adult or juveniles, because that's the way it should be. So we try to work with everyone. Now, you know, we are going to do our job. We're going to arrest people when we can, but if there are other alternatives to that, that's what we're going to pursue. And we learn that by working with all of these different agencies and with the court system. The participation in the task forces, those you see up there, what that helps us do is we don't have to utilize so many resources because we have these resources. So if we need to go get people somewhere, we can use a marshal service. They don't have to go out of town. We have a person assigned to that. We have all of those resources, whether it's a drug case, Secret Service, they help us with the cyber crimes. And one other good thing you would like to know is that our officers assigned to these units, when they work overtime, the feds pay for it. So I think that's a good benefit. An expanded deployment of our public safety cameras. We don't think we need to, at least at this time, even put up more because they have worked great. We caught a suspect in this Hastings homicide from information that we had seen in our cameras. We move them at times, but they have really worked great. They help us investigate crashes. We can't put crash information together again. Shootings. We have apprehended people involved in shootings because we've seen things from our public safety cameras. great tools. Our department goals. Most of these are always going to stay the same, except that obviously we want to have the body-worn cameras to all of our officers. We just got cameras in today that we are piloting, that we are hoping that if they work up to our standards, that we will be coming back and speaking to you all about that. Assistant Chief Bays, who's overseeing that project, you're going to be hearing from him, because I don't know if we're going to try to get a closed session scheduled, or we will invite you all over for information sharing so you can really get an idea about that before we have to come talk to you about it when I bring it up here to purchase them. So you have a really good in-depth knowledge of these cameras. And I will tell you that just like other places, we've been experimenting with them, and some officers who volunteered were kind of uneasy about it, but they did it. Some of them were, they had to be pushed to volunteer, but after they get them, they see the importance of it. We will continue our community outreach efforts through the pro-social contacts in areas just like the West Jefferson Community House. I will tell you that we had shootings in that area before that house opened up. Now we have 0 for 2017 since the house has been opened up. Crime has went down in that area. And we have not assigned extra people over there, except for Officer Mendiola goes by there. He's our public information officer, which is part of his duties. But overall, it has worked the way we had hoped, and we're still learning. It's still a work in progress, but 0 shootings in the area, crime going down, that was the goal. Work with our, PSCRB. We've had 4 meetings now. I think it's going very well. I think what I have to remind some of our citizens is that it's the Public Safety Citizen Relations Board. We're supposed to be working together. It's not supposed to be apart, but we'll get through that. But I think we have a good board. They are very open. They have some ideas, and I think it's going to be good. Obviously, maintain open dialogue with the community regarding our relations. I don't think you'll ever find anyone who said they have a problem coming in to speak to me. I may not give them the answers that they want, but they can always come talk to me. I will always be honest. We're still working towards accreditation. We're trying to work through ILEAP, the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police accreditation process. They were low on assessors for a while, and we are still working on getting up to the level where they're going to come inspect us. Always continue on reducing violent street-level gun and gang crimes. That will be ongoing. I would hope that would change. It is not at the levels that our neighbors have, and we were blessed with that, but that's because we work at it. We work at it and stay on top of it. And continue our department-wide focus on cultural diversity. That will maintain every year, going on all the time. I know that was kind of fast.
Question of our chief or assistant chiefs. Alderman Sage.
Thank you. And Chief, I always look forward to these presentations because they're so educational for me, and I have to tell you that I'm a frequent viewer of some of the Central Illinois early morning news shows, and I watch those with some regularity, and I can't tell you how many times as I watch those broadcasts, I say to myself, thank you, Bloomington Police Department, for the exceptional work that your team, that the police department team does. And it is exceptional. And so thank you. You have made a positive impact in the quality of life here in the city. And I have seen such a change. I know in the 11 years I've been here, and that starts at the top, and I've seen it move down through the ranks of the police department. So thank you.
Thank you. Much
On that note, can we give our chiefs a round of applause? Any Any other comments, questions? Chiefs, all of you, thank you so much. And Brendan, thank you very much for all you're doing. Okay. Next, we move to consideration of a resolution designating and authorizing a project to reconfigure and resurface the intersection of Empire and Fairway Drive. And I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Karch for a 5-minute presentation and afterwards council discussion.
Mayor and City Council, that is a tough act to follow. If I could have 3 people behind me, I'd appreciate it. That'd be great. So our police department does a great job. Thank you. So this should be hopefully a simple item that we'll be asking you to take action on a resolution. So this is not approving projects. This is a resolution that will allow for future eligibility of these capital projects to be funded and get reimbursement back from the TIF, this TIF district, this Empire Street Corridor TIF that has been established in 2016. In February 2016, the council established this. So tonight we're bringing you 2 projects, and we're just asking for this resolution so that in the future the council can choose to go toward them. IAA is one of those projects. This is part of the work that we're going to be bringing to you on April 23rd. The portion of the IAA Drive project that we're going to be doing starts at Bandana's, one of my favorite lunch places, really tasty. So that starts down there. It goes up to Grace Church of the Nazarene. But if you'll notice though on that right side, if you'll look at that pink, the IAA corridor that's being resurfaced is much larger than the area that we're talking about tonight. But again, what we're focusing on is the eligible area within the TIF. That's all that the resolution covers. The next project is Fairway Drive project that is also in the Empire Street TIF corridor. That one is a reconfiguration and resurfacing of the intersection of Fairway and Empire. So again, tonight we are not asking for your approval of these projects. That will come back to you on the April 23rd council meeting as part of our larger resurfacing. Tonight we have to bring these to you so that they're approved before the capital projects are approved. So you actually have to take the TIF resolution before the capital project is approved. That's why the council meeting before this, we're bringing this item to you. So both of these projects are TIF eligible. They're both public works projects. They're classified as TIF redevelopment projects. And again, I'd like to stress that the council in the future can choose to spend TIF funding on other projects. This just makes these 2 projects eligible. So we think it is intelligent planning for us to go ahead and do this. So again, our recommendation tonight is that you approve this resolution, and we'll be bringing back to you both of these projects for your approval on April 23rd at the next council meeting. With that being said, very, very simple. Let's see what questions that you have.
Questions of Mr. Karch? Alderman Matthey.
Do we have a list of all the possible projects that could happen inside of this TIF district? Because I remember, I think last fall we got a list from the school district, which is the school district, the high school and the junior high are included in this district, of projects they wanted to see, and I was just curious if there was like a total list of like what's already been committed and future projects that could be funded in this district.
Well, I can ask for our Director of Community Development, Bob Mart, to speak to this, but briefly what I can say, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but when the TIF was set up, there were eligible projects that were discussed as potential. So that was in the packet at that time, and the council did act upon that. That was not definitive nor restrictive, but it gave some examples of what could be covered. So other ones could be added at that time. They have to be eligible as defined. As we can see, there are certain definitions. If you'll go to up on this slide, these are the objectives of that TIF district. Those were set up in 2016. So Bob, if you'd like to come up and speak to this.
I'm not completely familiar with the Empire Street TIF redevelopment plan, but I believe, as long as they're TIF eligible expenses, we can bring those projects forward if the increment is available.
But there's nothing that's been committed?
Not specifically, no.
Okay, I wasn't on the council at that time. Is it possible to get that resent out, that list of what all those
get that redevelopment
we're talking
plan.
about was?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alderman Malamboy.
And I don't know if this is a question for you, Jim, but could you tell us where we stand in terms of the increment? Or lack thereof?
Yeah. I don't think there is anything yet, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd hate to.
This past year we'll have roughly, I believe, around 35,000 in the increment generated, but we're still waiting on some of those projects to come online to increase that increment. So we can bring that information back as well to the city council.
Alderwoman Howman.
Whatever. Thank you. I frequently drive on Fairway Drive and also on the IAA Drive, and thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Karch? Again, just remembering that this would come back to us as there's not final approval, but is there a motion to approve item 9D as presented?
Yes, so moved.
I'm shocked that you're voting.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Alderwoman Howman, second by Alderwoman Painter. Any further discussion? Go ahead and vote. Okay, the motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. The next item is item 9E, consideration of resolution to provide financial support in the amount of $17,625 for the feasibility report and economic impact analysis regarding a potential multi-sport complex in Bloomington Normal. There's a brief presentation by Mr. Rasmussen, and then possible council discussion following that.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. As you may recall, we've talked about this over the last month or so. I was approached about 2 months ago by City Manager from Normal, Mark Peterson, who asked if we would like to share in the cost of this study, and he simply asked me to poll the council to see where we were. What they were doing was, this was a study which was not to exceed $47,000, and they had divided that up to kind of spread it around the community between the town, the city, the county, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Because of their budget restraints, the county was not able to participate in that. However, the Convention and Visitors Bureau did, and I think we have Crystal Howard here from the CVB, and they did kind of their 1/4, which was $11,750, which they contributed. And so the remaining $47,000, if we split that between the city and the town equally, it would come down to $17,625,000, which you see in your packet. As we talked about it, we got mixed feelings about it from the council, and I didn't want to move forward on this until we got clear direction from the council. I wanted to be certain that everybody understood that this is not to move forward with a sports complex, nor is it to commit in any way to a sports complex, but rather to share in the cost of the study. The town has already sent forward that contract with the company that's going to do the study, so it's out there. They've offered for us to participate. Jay Tetzloff is attending a meeting, I think, tomorrow with them, and he'll participate that. And they will also ask us to come and sit at the table, whether we pay or not, because this is an effort for the entire community, and there's no guarantee as to where it might be. The study will look at all the areas in the Bloomington Normal area. And it was simply an offer on their part to see if we wanted to share in it. As I talked to the council, I did not get a clear indication which way we wanted to go, and so I couldn't get a clear number of votes on either one. So I bring it before you to discuss, and I think you have all of the information that we passed out in the last couple of weeks. And I'd just like to see where you'd like me to move forward on. I can sign that check on my own authority, but not without your permission. Thank you.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Rasmussen? Alderwoman Howman.
Not really a question.
Okay. All right. Or comments.
Yeah,
are in order.
I feel we need to participate in this feasibility study for 2 reasons. One, we need to partner in economic development options with our neighbor to the north, and because what benefits one community benefits the other community. And we can't make a decision on a potential sports complex based on guesses or suppositions. We need the information to determine whether or not this would be a good fit for both our Bloomington and capital O, capital C, our community. I know I've been vocal in the past about using consultants, but this is one time when I feel we need to invest in the expertise that we do not have and that we need. So I think given the scope of the project, $17,625 would be a modest investment to help us make a good decision.
And just to clarify, at the CVB, and then either Crystal or Scott, who sits on the CVB board, as we were discussing this, it was not necessarily assumed at all that this was going to be a publicly funded project. That at best a public-private partnership. Is that your recollection? Just as a nod in the short term.
I think I interpreted the conversation to be more about the current economic realities in our community versus what was happening 8-9 years ago when the original study was created.
I see. Okay. All right. Alderwoman Schmidt.
Thank you. I wanted to make a couple comments and then I had a couple of questions. I've actually surprised myself by finding that I'm inclined to support this, and I had started out on 180 probably from that. But as I read the scope of the study here, it became clear to me that, at least in my mind, this is very similar to the kind of diligence and reporting we got back from Steve Friedman, I think his name is, on downtown Bloomington, that I think is a report that gives us a lot of guideposts for anything that we're doing in terms of entering into an agreement with any kind of hotel vendor or a developer. It's not clear to me at this point, though, a couple of things. What the actual geography of where they're looking, and also whether or not they would be doing an asset analysis of places that we already have. So, you know, we know that we are already attracting youth sports to this community, and, you know, is that going to be are we acknowledging what we already provide? And making sure that that's the groundwork for this, and also thinking about other places that we're engaging with, you know, where we have fields and those kinds of assets as a community. And I don't see the answers to that, at least immediately.
On the first part, I have been assured by the town of Normal that it is geographical irrelevant. A consultant will come and look at all the areas in the community, both Bloomington and Normal, where there may be spaces. I know we've had some presentations about some spaces, but this study will look community-wide. And
if we could just add, is that your understanding, Crystal? Do you need to come, anything to add to that? McLean County.
And yes, and I'm sorry, I don't understand the second question.
I hope that we will do an inventory of all of the different opportunities we already have for youth sports. And I know that sometimes they're not adjacent to one another. Nevertheless, you know, I think that we have a number of assets in this community, and, you know, Parks and Rec has them, our school districts have them, we have the arena, et cetera, et cetera. So I wouldn't want to overlook what we already have.
I was going to suggest that Jay Tetzloff maybe can answer that, and he snuck up right behind me there.
So one of the things that's part of this, and we just start meeting tomorrow, so I'm still catching up on what's going on, but when it comes to the assets, so we are, you know, 3/4 the way through our Parks Master Plan. Normal completed theirs, I think, 2 years ago now. So we have an inventory that's already set. We know what everybody has. And according to the Normal Park Director this morning, I asked him about, are we looking at schools, and that's part of the conversation. That's actually the first part of our conversation tomorrow. So,
other questions, comments? Okay. At this point, is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman.
Since you don't want to hear me, right?
That's the way to do it. What we've been talking about.
Yeah,
is there a second?
9E as presented.
9E as presented, so moved. Is there a second? Second. Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. Or Matthew. Anything else? Okay, if everyone will vote yea or nay with the motion on the floor? Okay. The motion carries 5-4. There are 4 nays to announce, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Sage, Alderman Malumway, Alderman Painter, and Alderman Bray.
Okay. All right. We move right along.
Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and take action on that then.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next, we move on to item F, and F is not as confusing as it looks. Wow. Because it goes on and on. Bob, enlighten us. Allow us to see why this is not as confusing as it might look.
As soon as I can find my PowerPoint, which shouldn't be confusing either.
If I could just summarize, as I understand this, as we had talked and the city manager and I had spoken, that these are contracts, a variety of different types of water contracts, and because of the size of the expenditure, not necessarily because of the nature of the controversy, everybody felt that it was necessary, or by our ordinance was essential to bring to the council for approval.
Correct.
Yes, Mayor, because the total amount of them equaled over $1.5 million, with some of them being $800,000. I didn't feel comfortable putting this on the consent agenda without Bob being able to run through this with you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I'll turn it over to Bob and then council.
Thank you again. This is really going to give me 5 minutes to provide you an overview of great projects within the water department. Highlight additional great work that our staff does. It all just happens to come today. So bear with me as I walk through these 6 projects in somewhat of a truncated fashion, but I'll stay around to answer any questions you have. We have a location map here. These projects span every from within the city limits up to Lake Evergreen to Lake Bloomington. They are very essential to our production and ability to convey the water. I'm going to highlight the 6 we're going to talk about real quickly, and I'll show you some quick photos on those and get you done in under 5 minutes, I promise. So the first 2 we're going to talk about is the Evergreen Lake Pump Station. It's construction and observation. We have a pump station at Lake Evergreen. It pumps the water from Lake Evergreen, as it's called, over Lake Bloomington so we can treat that water. It was constructed about 70, redid some work in the mid-80s. We replaced 1 pump in 2000-ish. We still have 2 older pumps from the 80s. We need to bring them up to standards. One of them we actually have to kick to get going if we're to use it. We don't use that one anymore. Observation, I want to highlight that. We're not staffed internally in the water department, able to provide the field observation inspections, so we've asked the design consultant to watch the project when it's underway. So that's the observation portion of that. Lake Bloomington and Evergreen miscellaneous repair projects, I'll show you pictures, but again, observation along with the construction, we're not staffed to provide on-site all-day resources to do that, so we've got observation. That's a firm that's going to watch the contractor work. The water main replacement, Lake Bloomington, this is about a 3/4 mile water main replacement program. I'll talk a little further when I hit those pictures. And meter installation program. We really ramped up our efforts, so we need to transfer a little bit of money to continue that effort. So with that, Lake Evergreen, you can see in the top left corner picture, there's a green transformer in the bottom right of that. That's a 480 volt transformer. The bottom right picture is 2400 volts. 2400 volts feeds 2 pumps. We'd like to bring that down to 480 volts. It's much more efficient, new, modernized, and allow our staff to be able to work on that. As I said, one of our 2400 volt pumps don't work. As well as if you look inside the fence in the bottom right photo, there's 1 transformer sitting on the ground. That's the last transformer that Ameren's going to supply. So if we lose 2 of them, we are out of luck. So we need to move forward. It's a beautiful picture of the working end of a pump station. If you haven't been there, let me know. We'll take around back and see the beautiful lake view as well. So stuff not many people get to see. These are some pictures. You don't have to be well versed to see there's some issues in a lot of these. These are Lake Bloomington and Evergreen Lake spillways, fencing, buttresses, ditching. We need to repair some ditching, some erosion, some fences, put a drain in the bottom of the spillway so we can do our maintenance. All told, it's a very expensive and complex job. It's broken into 8 packages. We did take 2 packages out. One is an emergency drain in Bloomington. We're going to rebid that and package it later. We couldn't get a price on that. Other one is tree removal. Some of our slopes are in very poor condition, but we're going to do some of that with our internal staff to bring the cost down at a later time. So that one it includes observation as well. A water main. This is about 3/4 of a mile of water main on the west side of Lake Bloomington. The intersection you can kind of see on the left side is right there where we have Green Gables and Lake Road Inn, so to orientate yourself. It's a current 2-inch, most of it's a 2-inch water line, think about that. we need to go to an 8-inch water line. Yes, there's fire hydrants hooked to the current 2-inch water main. And no, it's not the only 2-inch water main we have in our system. So we need to focus up here, put some effort. This will be a very complex project. To be completely honest, we're not sure exactly where the water main resides at all locations. So we're assigning an internal staff member to work with the contractor to get this one done as efficiently as we can with the least disruptive to all our residents around Lake Bloomington. Meters. The graph I show in there is strictly meter changeouts. We usually talk about or have talked about RF meter changes so we can read those remotely. This is just changing old meters. Some that still have lead in them, some that are at their end of their service life. We're supposed to replace about 10% a year, 10-year life expectancy. We're well behind. Staff's doing a wonderful job of focusing on that. We've run out of money in that line item. We have another line item that's for meter accessories and stuff, so we want to move $35,000 over so we can buy more meters, continue the progress. You can see the last couple of months they've really jumped up in their effort, and we expect that to continue here going forward. So asking for that change order as well. With that, I give you 22 seconds back.
Whoa. Under budget. We'd love to hear that. Questions? Comments? Alderman Sage.
Thank you. Bob, on the parts of the project that have the observations built into it, and I'm trying to recall, I can't come up specifically, but there's been something over the years where we've had some observation work done, but then there wasn't any type of protection, if you will, built into the oversight, so that if in fact something wasn't constructed per plans, we didn't really have any chance to re-engage, the person who was providing the oversight, and in fact ask them to be responsible for additional cost or anything like that. Do we have any kinds of those provisions built into these?
There's standard contract language regarding the standard of care, what's standard for the industry, and what's expected for them to do their job. It's observation, it's inspection. We've built in the budget that they will be on site at all times when the contractor is working. Makes it much more difficult to observe and get that day-to-day when you don't budget for the proper amount of time to watch either. But there are conditions in the contract that we would look towards if we needed to address that issue.
So we would have the opportunity to recover potentially any additional financial charges as a result of work that was not done per specification?
I think that would be dependent upon the specific situation, depending on what the attorney behind me would say, but there's that opportunity to have that discussion. Yes.
Okay.
He's nodding.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Alderwoman Howman.
Just a curiosity question. It seems like we get change orders from George Gildner more often than others. I understand they were the low bidder. Do we take into consideration past projects when we're looking at bids?
I don't have the statistics on who we receive change orders and who more than others, so I can't speak to that directly. But do we consider that past history? To some extent, yes. In this case, I don't feel we're aware of anything that would dissuade us. We feel they're the low responsive bidder in this case.
I'll bring it up to other people later. Thanks.
Other questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve these as a group? I think.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Black. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Painter. Any further discussion? Seeing none, if everyone will go ahead and vote. This is voting aye as a group. Okay. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much, Bob, and your staff. We very much appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and shift to City Manager's discussion. Mr. Rasmussen.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I've had plenty of stuff tonight to do. I have nothing further, and I thank you all for your action.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have very little. I did want to thank the staff and IT for all their help in putting the Mayor's Open House together last Friday. It was a small but very good core and committed group and had some very good discussions. Several people brought readings themselves to share, and we still had a little bit of time for potholes. So anyway, I certainly appreciate that. I also wanted to thank Scott Sproul for helping me get back in and getting my keys a week ago Saturday. I ran into City Hall, get some stuff, ran back out into my car, and then my car said it did not detect a key. So I knew what had happened, and this is one of the many, many dumb things that I do. I went over to the police department. Police department couldn't get me in, and they said, you got to call Scott Sproul. So eventually, Scott Sproul used satellite technology of some form to let me in, and I got in. But thank you, Scott, for being there, even on a Saturday. I think it was afternoon by that point, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you also, Mr. Rasmussen, for attending the City Hall and, Town Hall meeting, Mayor's Open House, and helping to solve a couple of problems toward the end. I do very much appreciate that. And at this point, I will turn over to the council.
I just had a couple comments. Jay left already. I was going to thank him for re-roofing the gazebo at Rolling Brook Park. I feel better sitting under that now. It looks like it's going to stay there. Congratulations to Amelia. I neglected to mention it 2 weeks ago as a rising star recognized by your professional organization. Yeah. Not bad. Yeah.
She's already forgotten about that and moved
on. I just thought I'd embarrass her a little bit. And to our 2 police officers that participated in the wheelchair basketball game on Saturday for Life Show, Officer Jones and another officer whose name I cannot pronounce, were 2 of the players on the able-bodied team, and they didn't do nearly as well as the players that have some physical challenges. So, and a special thank you to Steve and the Finance Department for helping us through the 2019 fiscal year budget. It didn't seem nearly as challenging as it has in the past. So, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I'm sorry. Alderwoman Bray.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to shout out to staff and IT to thank them for their prompt action in providing a new alderman's table in the office here, as well as a printer, and we can pass our electronic tablets and laptops to the printer there, and they worked very promptly to set that up, kind of a place where we can open mail and can sit down there for a minute and kind of plug in and print off things. So thanks for your prompt action.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Melissa here for helping set that up, and I'd like to point out to everybody, if you need a place to sit down there, we do have that desk there now for you next to the printer in the front room. I'd like to give you all a room here to have for your own, and I'm working on that, but at least for now I can give you a place to sit down, thanks to Melissa and to Alderman Bray for working that for us.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Alderman Black, second by Alderwoman Bray. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Earlier than I thought. Well done, folks. Nice job. Good job.